بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. Excuse me. Alhamdulillah. After praising Allah Ta'ala and sending salutations upon our beloved Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we ask Allah Ta'ala to give us beneficial knowledge, grant us the guidance towards this beneficial knowledge and the ability to act upon this sacred knowledge that we are seeking. Allah Ta'ala bless you and your families. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. So today we will be going through the disliked prayer times for Nafil prayers. So last week we ended on the disliked prayers of the obligatory prayers. Now we'll be talking about not just the disliked but prohibited times. Now we're talking about the disliked times for voluntary Nafil prayers. So we'll be talking about the 5 times which this is disallowed, what this is, should I say, disliked in. And then we'll be talking about whether you can combine prayer or not. Can you combine prayers and pray in one time like some people do? Then we'll move on to the chapter of adhan, calling out the call for the prayer, and then the iqamah, which follows the adhan, that shows that the salat is commencing. So we'll go through that and a few rulings on that, and we'll also go through the method and procedure of calling out the adhan and the iqamah. And then we will go on to talking about the conditions of the prayer, the prerequisites, the shara'it of the prayer, that what is it that a person needs to have fulfilled before starting the prayer. So this is what we will be doing for today. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. So now we are talking about the disliked prayer times for voluntary prayers. So before we talked about the 3 prohibited times for obligatory prayers, even the voluntary prayers or any other prayer, it shouldn't be prayed during these 3 times, which is sunrise, midday and sunset. So we talked about them. Even obligatory prayers would not be allowed except for the asr of the day of sunset time. So we've done that. Now we talk about the disliked times to pray voluntary, meaning nafil prayers. So these are, the first one is the 3 times that we already talked about, that the obligatory prayer is disallowed in. Those 3 times, sunrise, midday and sunset. Besides that, we then have during a religious sermon, during a khutbah. So whilst the Friday sermon is going on, whilst the imam is doing the khutbah, the khatib is doing the khutbah, then is disliked to pray any nafil prayers. A person is disliked to pray any voluntary prayers. And likewise during the khutbah of Eid, whilst the Eid khutbah is going on, again is disliked. The sermon is going on, is disliked to pray these nafil prayers, optional prayers. Likewise, then it moves on to saying before the obligatory prayer of Fajr. So then it says except for the 2 rakats of Sunnah. So from beginning of Fajr time, which is true dawn, Subah Sadiq, from that time up until the Fajr Fard is prayed. During that time, the person should only ever pray 2 rakats of Sunnah, the 2 rakats of Sunnah Mu'akkad, to emphasize Sunnah of Fajr. So that's the only 2 rakats that a person should be praying from the beginning of Fajr time until the Fajr Fard. That's what this is talking about. Next he mentions after the obligatory prayer of Fajr is performed without exception, until after the disliked time of sunrise. Meaning now he's not even exempting the 2 rakat sunnah. So after a person has performed the Fajr Fard, obligatory Fard, 2 rakats, then you cannot pray any nafil. Without any exception, a person can not pray any nafil up until the sun rises fully and the disliked time it finishes. So the only difference between before Fajr time and after Fajr time is that before Fajr you're still allowed to pray the 2 sunnahs of Fajr. After Fajr, Fard, you're not allowed to pray anything anymore. That's the difference. That's why he separates them out. Then he says after the Asr prayer is performed until sunset. So now the difference, here, Asr prayer. So the Nafil, the optional prayers, are disliked to be prayed in Asr time, but only after the performance of Asr Fard. So you perform Asr Fard, now you are no longer able to pray any optional prayers. But if a person prayed the optional prayers before the performance of Asr, then that would be fine. Nothing wrong with that. So there's a difference in Fajr and Asr. So you see in Asr, if for example, let's just say Asr time begins at 4 p.m., finishes at 6 p.m. Let's just say that, right? In this particular case that we're doing. So if at 4 o'clock, if a person prayed Nafil and carried on praying Nafil until 1 hour, till 5 o'clock, then at 5 o'clock decides to pray their Fard, Asr Fard, then after that Asr Fard, they are no longer able to pray any more Nafil prayers. But from 4 till 5, they could carry on praying as many Nafil prayers as they wanted. It would be nothing wrong with it. But if tomorrow they chose to pray Asr at 4 o'clock, beginning time, it comes in, they pray at 4:05, or they pray nearer beginning time. Now, during the rest of the 2 hours that are remaining till Maghrib, they cannot pray any more Nafil. Even though yesterday, during that first hour, they prayed Nafil. Today they cannot pray anymore. The point is, after the Asr prayer, you cannot pray anymore. Whereas in Fajr, as soon as the Fajr time starts, you cannot pray, besides the 2 sunnahs of Fajr. So that's the difference between these two. Hopefully this is understood. It is not valid, moving on, it is not valid to combine any 2 obligatory prayers in one prayer time, except at Arafat and Muzdalifah. That is the pilgrimage on Hajj. So the pilgrim on Hajj may combine Dhuhr and Asr in the time of Dhuhr on the day of Arafah. This will be on the field of Arafat as well, and must delay Maghrib till the time of Isha at Muzdalifah. So they will go from Arafat to Muzdalifah, but they will not pray Maghrib at Arafat. They will delay it till they get to Muzdalifah, and most likely they will get to Muzdalifah when it will already be Isha time. That's fine. You will pray your Maghrib and Isha in Muzdalifah at Isha time. So this is something that there is a actual combining of prayer between Dhuhr and Asr in Dhuhr time and Maghrib and Isha in Isha time. So that's what's happening in Hajj only for the pilgrim. Besides that, in our Hanafi school, there is no combining of prayers whatsoever. Now you may find some people who are a little bit more relaxed in this particular ruling, and they go into other madhab, they go into the other schools of thought, jurisprudence, and then they will take from there, or they will give preference to certain evidences of hadith that are presented. But remember, our madhab has clear evidence to prove that there is no combining of prayers. You cannot combine the prayers for the reasons that are stated according to our madhab, that people state for rain and for traveling and whatever else. All these other reasons, they are not valid according to us. So we should not fall into this. If some people they go down this route and then they will choose this particular ease, then it does not mean that we should be doing it, because we, as followers of the Hanafi school, sticking to one school is what we would say to do. So combining of prayers is definitely not allowed according to our school of thought. And anyone that claims otherwise will have to bring proof for that. the onus would be on them to bring proof that according to the Hanafis it is allowed. Otherwise, it clearly states in our books it's not allowed, like we just read. Moving on to the call to prayer, the adhan, and its commencement, meaning the iqamah. So one is the adhan, and following that we have an iqamah. The adhan is the call to prayer, which is said out loud, preferably said out loud, and it will tell you the adhan and iqamah are emphasized sunnahs for the 5 daily prayers and the Friday prayer, yet not for any other prayer. So the adhan will be called out for the fard prayers, for the 5 daily prayers. Even on the Friday prayer, it's still one of the 5 prayers of that particular day. So adhan will be called out, and iqama will be called out just before the prayer starts, and it's called out a more quicker pace than the adhan will be called out. When one hears the adhan performed according to the sunnah, he should respond to the one performing it and then make dua for the Prophet ﷺ to be granted the station of mediation, wasila. So this is a station that is granted to only one individual amongst all of the creation of Allah. And Rasulullah ﷺ said, make dua for me that I be that person, because I hope to be that person, and it's only been granted to one person, so we hope that it is the Prophet ﷺ, and we understand that it probably will be him, so it's in our benefit, in our interest, that we ask for it for him anyway, so that he will remember us, and he'll be told that these are the people who asked for you to receive this wasila, this station. So may Allah Ta'ala grant Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, our beloved Prophet, this station. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. Anyway, so the response to the adhan that should be given is in exactly the same way as the person calling out the adhan says. So when he says Allahu Akbar, you repeat by saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. When he says Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, we repeat the same thing. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, we repeat the same thing. And then when he says Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala salah, there's a difference of opinion now. Some say you repeat the same thing. Others say you say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Our school says to say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. However, if a person says both, it's fine as well. Some scholars have mentioned. And then the rest of the adhan again is the same. When they say, whatever the person calling out the adhan is saying, then you repeat the same thing back to them. Then he says the phrase Allahu Akbar, or the phrase Allahu Akbar is said 4 times in the beginning, while the remaining phrases are said twice. The same applies to the iqamah. Hence the person calling the adhan says the following: Allah is the greatest. So you don't say in English, you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah, I mean, you say, obviously you don't say it the way I'm saying it. You have to say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. You say it loud, you do it clearly, you do it in a tune, no problem, it's all good. And likewise you say, that's Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So you said it, this is 2 times, and another 2 times I said it, so 4 times total. Then you go on to the next one. I testify that there is no deity except Allah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. And you say that twice. Then you move on to Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I testify that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you go on to that's said twice as well. You say come to prayer. So you're calling other people and you say Hayya ala salah, and you say that twice. And then you say Hayya ala al-falah, and you say that twice, which means come to success. In the adhan for Fajr, the person that is saying the adhan, he adds, prayer is better than sleep. And he says this twice. He says, As-salatu khayrun minan nawm. He said that twice. And then in the iqamah, he adds, instead of As-salatu khayrun minan nawm, that's only in the adhan. In the iqamah, every iqamah, whether it's Fajr or any other iqamah of the other prayers, all 5 prayers, you have to add the prayer has commenced. You say قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ. You say it twice. Both additions for Fajr and for the Iqamah are said after the phrase come to success. So both these additions are said here, Hayya ala salah, after Hayya ala falah, Hayya ala falah. That's when you say these additions. Then you go last few phases, you go Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest, and you say that twice. I've already said it twice. Allahu Akbar is twice. Then you say La ilaha illallah. There is no deity except Allah, and you only say that once. So this is the full adhan, and in between we've also said the iqamah, because the iqamah is, adhan is said in this way, like I said it, but iqamah is said more fast paced. You say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah, hayya ala al-falah. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. And you notice the pauses I made as well. That's the way that you make the pauses, as we understand from the Sunnah. So after the first four, then twos, 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 and the last three same together. The person calling the adhan should pause shortly between each set of phrases. Like I said, I paused, which he should hasten in the iqamah. So you say hastily in the iqamah, like I did, I demonstrated. Between the two, he should sit for a short amount of time, except for Maghrib. So between the two, if a person wishes to continue to say the after the adhan and then say the iqamah, a person should say the adhan, sit for a while, or pray the sunnahs and things like this, and then give the iqamah. Moving on. So we're talking about giving the iqamah. Iqamah will be said much more faster paced, and the between the adhan of Maghrib and Iqamah of Maghrib, there's no sitting that is required over here or recommended over here. Between all the other prayers, it is. The person calling out the adhan should be the person calling out the Iqamah too. It is disliked for someone in a state of major ritual impurity to perform either the adhan or the iqamah. So if you're in a state of major ritual impurity, needing of ghusl, then a person cannot call out the adhan nor the iqamah. Or for someone in a state of minor ritual impurity to call out the iqamah. So if a person is in the state of needing wudu, then they should not be calling out the iqamah. Because obviously you can understand iqamah, straight after it will come the salah, and you're not going to be ready to pray that salah. You're going to have to do iqamah, go to do wudu and come back. For the adhan, is like you're calling people to prayer, getting them to be ready for prayer, but you're not ready yourself. You still need to take a ghusl. So this is the reason why it is not, it is disliked to do in these particular states. Then it mentions neither of the two may be recited except in Arabic. So you have to read both the adhan and the iqamah in Arabic. You cannot say them in any other language. Even if it is known that it is the adhan according to the sound opinion. Meaning, even if I was to call out Allah is the greatest, Allah is the greatest, and I say it in a way whereby people will understand it's the adhan, I'm saying in English, but still I'm not allowed to do that, because we have to follow the method that has been given to us by our sunnah, our obviously our sharia. It is recommended that the person calling the adhan be a righteous person, be one who knows both the sunnah of how to perform the adhan as well as the prayer timings. So it has to be somebody that knows the prayer timings, obviously, then otherwise they're going to end up giving the adhan at the wrong times. Not that they have to work it out how to do it, but at least be able to work out from the timetable that they have been given that they would give adhan in accordance to that. Likewise, their pronunciation be correct as well. So anyway, moving on, be in a state of ritual purity, that we already talked about. Face the qibla. So when you're giving adhan, you have to face the qibla. Place his index finger in each ear. So you place the fingers into each ear, and turn only the face towards the right when saying come to prayer, and the left when saying come to success. So when a person is saying Hayya ala salah, salah, no, hayya ala salah, like that. And then when you're saying hayya ala al falah, hayya ala al falah, so looking towards the left when saying hayya ala al falah. So you only turn the face, you don't turn the whole body, you don't turn the chest, you turn the face only. And that are, those are the finishing touches of the Adhan chapter. So conditions, moving on to conditions, meaning the shara'it of the prayer. So these are prerequisites, we would call, to the prayer itself. Before a person starts the prayer, they must make sure these things are met, they are done. These are requirements that a person must meet. So it is not valid to begin the prayer without having fulfilled its conditions, which are, namely, number one is being in a state of ritual purity, from both minor and major ritual impurity. So you need to have wudu, and obviously you need to be pure, not in a state of needing ghusl. Number two, being free from any physical filth. So no physical filth on a person. There's no blood or any urine or any sort of feces or anything on a person's body or clothing, on one's garments, body, and place of prayer. So you cannot be on a place of prayer as well, except for that which is excused. So if a person was one of those excused people we talked about previously, they are part of a club where they are bleeding constantly, for example, and they have that blood which is constantly coming out and is on their clothing, then that is excused, as we talked about. Number three, covering one's nakedness, the aura, which for the men is the area right below the navel. So right below the navel, starting from there, immediately after the navel, until right below the knees. So immediately below the knees, where the knee finishes, so the knee is included in part of the aura, the nakedness of the man. And for the woman, the entire body except for the face, hands, and feet. So the face, wherever the face is, so obviously we talked about face in wudu, so it's the same part, from tip of the forehead all the way down to the chin, and from one earlobe to the other. That face is not the aura, is not the nakedness for the woman. Likewise, the hands, both inside, inner palms, fingers, and the outside up till the wrist, and the feet up till the ankle. So all of this is not part of her nakedness, and this can be exposed during salah. It's fine. The nakedness of the slave girl is the same as that of the man, except for the abdomen, obviously the chest area and everything, and the back, which are part of her nakedness. So that needs to still be covered. The main part, which is not included, which would be included for a woman who's not a slave girl, are the arms, the hair, and below the knees. Everything else is still part of her nakedness. So this is something that needs to be understood. The nakedness that needs to be covered for both men and for women. Now, when we talk about that, we also need to understand practically that you can't be wearing clothing which is so thin that you can see the skin through it. So if you're wearing thin clothing and you can see the skin through that clothing, then this would obviously be revealing skin, and hence it would be the salat, depending on how much of it is exposed, could become invalidated. So this is important to understand. If a person wears thick clothing, the skin cannot be seen through, but it's tight clothing, you can see the body shape through it, then this would be disliked to pray in this kind of clothing. So nowadays, clothing is very important. Likewise for males, the above the waist, if a person is wearing certain type of bottoms, trousers, jeans, then a person needs to make sure that the above the back passage, this is not left open, because nowadays there's this phenomena. There's certain style that people are following, where the trousers are worn, or the jeans are worn halfway down the back passage, and then obviously a lot of the backside is left then open, especially when going down in ruku or in sujood, going down, then that back passage, back area becomes very much exposed. And if the full sajda is done in this way, then that sajda doesn't count, because your whole sajda went with your aura being exposed, so that sajda doesn't count. And if your sajda doesn't count, your salat will not count, because you have not done a sajda, a valid sajda. So this is why it's very important that a person covers themselves properly, wears suitable clothing. And when it comes to clothing, suitable clothing, that also includes not wearing pajamas, not wearing your nightwear during the prayer. Though there are, if a person was wearing their nightwear, which is good clothing, decent clothing, respectable clothing, then that's fine. But generally speaking, we would recommend that a person wears or does not wear that clothing which they would not go out with or in. So remember, we are standing in front of Allah Ta'ala, so this is important to have that veneration of Allah Ta'ala in this way. But it's not a condition, this is recommendations. The conditions I've talked about already. Moving on. So number 4 is facing the Qibla, i.e. the Kaaba. So you face towards the direction of the Kaaba. You find out which way that is for you in your country, and then you make sure you remember that. So the Kaaba itself, so you have to face the actual Kaaba itself for one in Mecca who can see the Kaaba. So if you can see the Kaaba, you have to actually face the Kaaba itself. This is obvious that you would do that. Or you're facing the direction, which is the jiha, the direction of the Qibla for others, meaning for anyone that cannot see the Kaaba itself, then you face the direction of the Kaaba. Because if you're facing towards the direction of the Kaaba, you probably may, because depending on how far you are, you probably may miss it. You may not be directly getting onto the Kaaba itself, but it's no problem, because you have to face the direction of the Kaaba. Moving on, number 5 is the entrance of the prayer time. That's also a prerequisite, that a person must make sure that the prayer time has started. If the prayer time has not started, then obviously the prayer would not have counted. So this is to make sure that the prayer time has started. Number 6 is the intention. The person makes the intention, the place of which is in the heart. The heart, obviously, spiritually, we talk about heart. The heart is the main thing. Just like physically, the brain is probably the main thing that a person uses to think. Spiritually, a person uses the heart to think. And that's why generally Allah Ta'ala addresses the heart many a times in the Quran. So anyway, the person thinks that I am praying this particular prayer. This is important, the intention that a person does make. So that's that. Number 6, you don't need to verbalize the intention, but if a person feels that by verbalizing the intention, I can concentrate better, I can gather my thoughts, then that's fine. You can verbalize the intention. It's not wrong to do it, but a person should not think of this as incumbent and necessary to do. Okay. Number 7 is the tahrima, the opening Allahu Akbar to the prayer. So saying Allahu Akbar, this is again a prerequisite. A person must do this to start their prayer. So the place of which is the tongue. Now, meaning that this is something that is said with the tongue. You can't just think it. You can't just think, I'm thinking Allahu Akbar in my brain now. That's not enough. You have to actually say Allahu Akbar. You don't have to say it as loud, but you do have to say it so that you can hear yourself. The place of which is the tongue. Hence, it must be uttered such that one can hear himself, like I explained. Additionally, it must coincide with the intention in the heart, meaning it doesn't have to be exactly coinciding, but it could be that the intention is just before it, without a separation like talking, eating, or any action that contradicts the actions of the prayer. Meaning, I can't have made an intention now that I'm going to pray my dhuhr, for example. Then I started talking to somebody. Then I said Allahu Akbar without thinking anything. There can't be a separation between the intention and the start of prayer Allahu Akbar. There should not be a gap between them of something foreign to salat. But if I was saying, or thinking, I'm going to pray 2 rakats of dhuhr, then I started thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to have to pray Surah Al-Fatiha. Let me practice it once. So I read Surah Al-Fatiha, because this is still something which is not foreign to prayer. It's still concerning prayer. Or I made an intention, I was just gathering my thoughts, thinking of Allah, thinking of standing in front of Him, just getting spiritually ready. And then I said Allahu Akbar when I felt ready. So there was a gap between my intention of praying dhuhr, but that's fine at the start of prayer. So this is all okay, because it's not an action which contradicts the actions of prayer. So likewise, everything uttered in the prayer, which includes the intention, takes the same ruling, so one should give it due consideration. So what this simply means is that anything that has to be uttered in the prayer, like you have to recite the Surah Al-Fatiha, you have to recite a surah, you have to recite Subhan Rabbil Azim in the ruku, anything that has to be recited in this way, in essence, you have to say it in a way that you can hear yourself. You utter it in a way you can hear yourself. Obviously, if you're praying with people alongside you, don't say it too loud that it disturbs them. Okay, but you do say it loud enough that you can hear yourself, and that doesn't take much to do. But a person can't do this. Basically, you can't be thinking the Surah Al-Fatiha. You have to actually utter. You have to actually say it, because you have to recite the Surah Al-Fatiha. Reciting can only be done if a person's lips are moving. So the lips must be moving for this. That's what he means when he says everything uttered in prayer, which includes the intention, takes the same ruling. So one should give it due consideration. Some of the above conditions, moving on, are overlooked if there is a valid excuse, such as lack of water to remove excess filth, lack of a garment to cover oneself, fear of an enemy, preventing one from facing Qibla. So there's an enemy, it prevents you from facing Qibla, in which case one prays in whatever direction he feels secure. So you just face any direction. فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ, or general inability to face the Qibla due to sickness or the like, in which case one prays in whatever direction he is able. So if you're bedbound in a hospital, for example, and there is nobody to move you to face towards the Qibla or anything like that, then a person can just pray. If the time is running out, the person can just pray towards whichever direction they can pray towards, because they have an excuse. There's a valid excuse here not to face the Qibla. Likewise, if there's a valid excuse not to clean off the excess filth on the clothing or the body. So any of the things that we talked about, the conditions can be left out if there is a valid excuse as to why a person is leaving them out. So this is important to understand the ruling for these conditions. If one does not know the direction of the Qibla, so let's say you're in a foreign place, you're somewhere, and you don't know which way the Qibla is, he should make a reasonable, educated guess, which is called taharri, and pray in that direction. So you make an educated guess. You make a guess, you look at the sun, okay, the sun rises, and then you look at where the sun actually, maybe the placement of the sun is. So you can work it out by, you see that the sun rose in the east and now it's in the west, and my Qibla is southeast, for example. Then you can work it out that, okay, the sun is here, it's going this way, this direction. You can work it out like that, right? Or if a person uses other instruments, other things, other landmarks or something, to be able to work out through wind direction, if a person knows which way the wind blows and things like this. So whichever way a person can work it out, a person makes an educated guess to work out which direction the Qibla would be. There are some practical ways. In the UK we have the sky satellite dishes which face towards the southeast, which is our Qibla, happens to be our Qibla coincidentally. So this is one way in the UK you can work it out anyway. Likewise, if you have phones nowadays, everyone has phones. It's so easy to work it out through phones using GPS to see where your placement of you is, where you are, and you compare that to buildings around you, and you work out which way your your qibla would be. So this is a taharri educated guess a person should make, not just a guess like, okay, I'm just going to turn and where I stop it's going to be okay, it's that way. That's not good enough. That's not a taharri. This is a guess. You have to make an educated guess to the best of your ability. So you have to do this. A person must do this if a person does not know the direction of the qibla. If a person prays like that with that taharri, later on finds out that I was wrong, later on after having completed the prayer, then it's all okay because you did taharri, you did according to the best of your ability at that time. You don't have to repeat the prayer. But if a person did not do taharri and then it turns out to be wrong, they're gonna have to repeat the prayer. So this is why it's important to do taharri. If one has many containers of water with more than half of them containing purifying water and has doubt as to which one of them contains purifying water, he should also make an educated guess and then use the water of that container. So you've got a few containers, few bottles of water, you know that some of them are, or majority of them are purifying. So then you can make an educated guess that, okay, this looks like the top is sealed, or this one, I remember using this kind of bottle before, things like this. You work it out. And then from that, you can work out which water is pure but not purifying, and the other water is pure and purifying. So they can use that water for the wudu or for the ghusl. If one has multiple garments and at least one of them is pure, he should make an educated guess and pray in that garment. So you got multiple garments, you don't know which one's the pure one, you know the other ones are impure, but you don't know which one. It's got najasat غير مرئية, meaning najasat which you can't see, and then you can't work out which one's got that najasat. You just make an educated guess as long as maturity of the clothing, if it says here actually multiple garments, at least one of them is pure even, is good enough. A person can make an educated guess. You can look at the clothing and you can see which ones got any stains and things like that. So this is what a person should do. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just to summarize what we have done for today. So we went through firstly the disliked times for nafil prayers. So we talked about the 3 times, the sunrise, sunset, and midday. That's already prohibited. That's already disliked anyway. Then during a sermon, and then before and after the Fajr prayer, meaning within the Fajr prayer time, and after the Asr of that day. So after you've prayed the Asr of that day, then it's disliked to pray any nafils. Then we talked about the actual combining of prayer in its actual state. You can only combine prayers, one prayer in the prayer time of the other. In Arafat and in Muzdalifah, we combine Dhuhr and Asr in Dhuhr time, and we combine Maghrib and Isha in Isha time in Muzdalifah. Besides these two combinings, there is no other combining in the Hanafi school. Then we went through the adhan and the iqama rulings, and the adhan is said for all the prayers, even when a person is praying alone, by the way. Yes, not just in the masjid. So a person's praying alone and they should be giving out the adhan. If there is a masjid close by, they don't need to give the adhan because that adhan of the masjid will suffice you. But if you're praying in a prayer where in an area where there is no masjid close by, no adhan called out, then you should be calling out the adhan. The iqamah should also be said, and that's also to be said when you're praying in congregation or whether you're not praying in congregation. When you're praying the fard, you should be saying out the iqamah. Then we went through the actual method of adhan, and we did the Fajr adhan separately as well. We say after Hayya ala al-falah, Hayya ala al-falah, You say as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm twice. You say that, but that's only in the adhan, not in the iqamah. And in the iqamah for all 5 prayers, you add qad qamat as-salah after twice. You add qad qamat as-salah twice after hayya ala al-falah. Then we mentioned of some rulings specific to adhan and iqamah, as in calling out the adhan and iqamah in Arabic only, making sure a person is not in a state of major ritual impurity, and for iqamah, making sure that person is not in a state of minor ritual impurity, meaning not having wudu. And placing the index finger into the ears whilst giving adhan, and turning towards the right when saying hayya al-salah, and turning towards the left when saying hayya al-falah. So you do it twice and then twice. And then we went into the conditions, the shara'it of the prayer, and we listed or mentioned in detail, you would say, being pure of the need of ghusl and wudu, no physical impurity on the body, garment, place of prayer, covering one's awrah, the man and woman's obviously sex separate, but covering that. So the awrah, remember, the awrah is different to parda. Don't get that mixed up. So this is talking about awrah itself, and though covering the feet with socks, wearing socks would be better to do, just because this is there is ikhtilaf, there is difference of opinion in other schools who say that the feet are part of the awrah, but according to Hanafis is not part of the awrah, so it's okay anyway. Then facing Qibla, the actual Kaaba, if you can see the Kaaba, but otherwise the direction of the Kaaba. Then making sure you're praying within the prayer time, and then making intention and saying Takbir Tahrima, the actual opening of prayer. So we went through these conditions, and if a person has a valid excuse, these conditions will be taken away. If a person doesn't know the direction of the Qibla, then you have to do Tahari. So these are the rulings that we covered today.